Broadcast.
Oh, wait a minute.
Live.
Looks like it. Let's see if this is showing up.
Let's see if it's showing up. We're not doing a wait stream. We're just like, screw it, we're live. We're going to figure it out as we go.
Oh, someone's talking, so ostensibly we're here. Yes, this is live.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sweet. Yeah, no, this is all like brand new tech that Colin just decided to use this week. So we're still figuring out the specifics.
Should we blast everyone in the Discord, Tyler?
Well, usually I would be on, like I said, I would give you guys good audio and video, but alas, I found out I was on your guys' today, last night at 10, so I was not quite ready. We had people coming down, so there's a bunch of games going on over there.
Awesome.
And hold on, at this guy's house. All right, get in the video real quick, thanks. That guy, he's in charge.
No, I'm in charge.
Well,
I'm
sorry.
In charge. You think
Never mind.
I'm the one that's in charge.
This is a real statement, yes. He's in charge of gaming. She's in charge of, well, everything else.
Just pivot our goals talk to just like watching Brad's friend's game.
So it all works out. Plus, she makes all the food.
I'm making ribs today.
See? You guys are missing out.
3:00.
It's stop in. You guys should be here by what next week? Just get in the car.
Yeah.
You're just around the corner, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Ribs and sweet potatoes.
I'm only 3,000 some miles away. You guys should be fine.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Are we ready to chat? I'm psyched.
Yeah, I think so. Cool.
You want that? I made that with cinnamon rolls.
I love it.
All right, intro us, Tyler. Let's do it.
Sure. We'll add our music in post, and then it starts like this. Welcome to Best in Faction.
The next generation.
A podcast by Zoomers for Boomers.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Lucas.
And today we are joined by the one and only
Old Man Brad. Also, I'm pretty sure that when Lucas said that, he was being held. There's a guy out screaming with a gun because that was the saddest intro of all. You were like, please don't kill my family, sir. I'll think whatever you want me to say.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is like funny, but also like, I feel kind of gross saying this.
Excellent. So we won't be saying that on screen again. Well, thank you so much, Brad, Ed, for joining us. For those of you who somehow don't know who Brad Chester is, he is one of the longest running and most prolific players in the competitive 40K scene. He's a member of the Art of War, and he finished this past season in, what, 4th overall?
Sadly 4th. Basically, 40K Jeebus decided that there was going to be some problems with me, so I had a few issues going in. And I also had an angry wife that was like, why are you going to Vegas? You're going to die there. But I chose to go because I make bad decisions. And I've seen me do it. I'll do it again. Watch me.
Excellent. Well, glad that you made it through that and you're still here to chat with us today. And despite whatever choice you made, you still ended up, what, 5-1 at Vegas?
5-1 in Vegas. I decided to have the worst day at one of all time. Playing Hurdle and Manny, and played Manny with his 170-some racks in Vital Intelligence. I looked at him, I go, this is unwinnable. The worst is, I had two things that were my favorite things that happened in that game. Manny's a great guy, so even though I was doomed to probably lose that game, first off, Horton and Root, two of the judges of the event, walking by were basically trolling me about how bad my dice were in a game that I was probably already going to lose. I killed about, I think, 150 of his racks. Manny's looking at the table as we're packing up and looks at the thing and goes, man, if it wasn't Vital, I think I might have lost. And I'm like, too soon, Manny. Too soon, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
And then I played an hour of 40K the next day.
Yeah.
Just
like Crusher Stampede to me.
Yeah, standard Crusher Stampede.
Yeah, I played 3 20-some-minute games, and I got to chill out in the back of the room and hang out with everybody. It worked out.
Dope.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. Well, as I believe this is your first time on a BiffPod show, it's definitely your first time on our show. We tend to, as it,
One
it
of
tends to
your
be-
shows, yes.
Yeah. It tends to be a tradition here to start off by asking exactly what your origin story is. How and when did you get into this hobby, and how did you end up where you're at today?
I have a dual part of that for how I got into it. I had my first open heart in 2000, and I went to the game store, and I was a role player, card player, and went in, and a bunch of my buddies had been playing 40K, and I had never played it before, and I had nothing to do, so I couldn't drive, and I got dropped off at the store, and eventually was like, "Show me how to do this." And my good friends, being my good friends, of course, showed me the School of Hard Knocks way of how to play. Oh, that was a terrible move, Brad. Boo! But to go along with that, I've never been a modeler. I was never a modeler as a kid. I didn't do anything. My first box of minis I purchased, I bought a Chaos Terminator book because I was playing second edition. I wanted to get Chaos Terminators were amazing. We were just going into third, and the fluff was crazy. Terminators show up and they destroy everything. They do not do that in the game, but the fluff they did. But I show up, get that box, and a ton of people are sitting around me at the game store. And I'm like, why are you idiots all just staring at me? There's like a crowd, basically. They're like, no. Don't worry about it, Brad. Open that box. I open the box, and I get sprues. I'm thinking I'm getting 5 Chaos Terminators. And everybody starts laughing because I'm losing my mind about it, going, what is this crap? like, they're like, yes, we knew you were an idiot, would be mad about this. So, and I was like, I'm glad I delivered. You're welcome, guys. And that is how I started.
That's hilarious.
Fantastic. For context, for those who may not know, at this point in time, Lucas and I are both like less than a year old.
I'm a year old. Yep.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I was thinking about that. I go, I think I'm older than you guys and almost all 3 of you combined.
Possibly.
It's entirely possible.
I'm definitely the dad here.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad to have such long time talents on the pod. And did you go right into comp? You said you were talking about Hard Knocks learning. Were you at tournaments in like 6 months, or how did that go for you?
I did. I get real competitive with everything I do, to be honest. I was already playing a lot of different things, competitively, cards and stuff like that. And so I kind of went into the 80s montage video, of playing all the time. But I also had, at that time, I'm not to be able to do anything. So I was playing literally all day for hours and hours and hours. For the first month or so that I even got into the game, I played every day, and I played multiple games. I had nothing else to do. So I basically got my head kicked in a lot, like everybody does when you first start playing. And then started going, and then just started immediately going to tournaments. I got really into it, though, because I really, as much of a bandwagon power gamer I'm a huge fluff guy. I read all of that's how I got into the first place. So I'm a big fan of all the lore and stuff like that. So I was pretty excited to get a lot of super cool armies and stuff together. And I got really into the game and the hobby itself. So, and the guy you just saw paints all my stuff. When I show up with an actual well-painted army, that's the guy that did it. When I hobo my armies together, which I've done several times maybe, but like when I showed up to the LVO and I brought a lictor. Actually, no, I didn't bring the lictor. I didn't bring that. I had me do it for me. I almost showed up with models. I brought dice. I brought dice and 2 side paradiddles. There you go. I did bring the side.
I would hope you have dice going to a 40K tournament. I gave someone else to bring those too.
Well, I've done that a lot.
Oh,
I actually think I broke. I can't even remember the podcast I did, but my first Adepticon when I showed up and they gave me a podcast and they're asking me all about the models. I go, I just showed up. I literally came in. I was somewhere else for work, and I just showed up and basically had 0 models, 0 dice, 0 anything. It just got handed. And the dude was a super big hobbyist, and his mind just stopped working when I said that. I was like, what? I just got handed a bunch of things. I played. I'm going to leave. I'm not taking anything with me. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I really like playing. All that other stuff is silly. Making lists and playing games is where it's all about, right?
Yeah. Fair.
Fantastic. So that's a little bit about, Oda, what you were doing way back in the day. I want to pull things in to this past season here. We're just off the hill of the 2021 season. Like we said, you finished 4th overall, like 2nd or 3rd in Drukari. What were you? Did you walk into last season with some sort of goal, some sort of mindset? What were you trying to accomplish?
I wanted to win. I had the time finally to go to enough events, and I was really pushing to. I wanted to win the ITC, and I was number 1 for a good part of the year on that, and then kind of had to stumble at the end. I was number 1 in Drukari going in. I went into, and sadly, like I just had a bunch of stuff. I had some surgeries and stuff going into LVO, and I wanted to go out because I really think that the best part about 40K, as much as we talk about the games and stuff, is hanging out with everybody. I mean, like, just you guys, I get to see you guys, like a couple times a year, you know what I mean? All kinds of different people, you know what I mean, from all over the world. So I really wanted to still go, and I wanted to play, but I knew that if I wasn't going to be able to play 9 3-hour games, I just was not going to make it through that and be in any sort of condition to exist. I barely made it through my 20-minute games, so... and I kind of YOLO'd into, I need to play something super simple with Crusher Stampede, and not really my type of list. It was fun. Sometimes it's fun to play big bugs and soccer toss things, but I didn't play Jakar, didn't play a Brad list. If I would do everything again and I basically magically got better, I would have played probably yours or McDougal's list. The GSC, Force of the Hive Mind. At the time, I really think that without Tau being there now, because we'll talk about them later. But without them there, I thought that was the most well-balanced list into everything that you could play. I don't think it just dominates any one thing, but I really felt that it had plays in everything, and that's more my style of a list, is to have tools to play into anything. I would rather be 50% or better into the whole field than be 85% into 70-some% of the field, because then you get those matches you feel you just can't win. I mean, that's how I felt going into my 3rd game of the Vital Intelligence, where I just go, I don't know if I mathematically have enough attacks to kill this many guys. That just feels silly, you know what I mean? I don't like playing that way. But the year itself, I was really concentrating on, going into LVO with a shot. I mean, the thing is that you go into a 1,000-person tournament, it's not like you're guaranteed ever to have, to win that. So I was hoping for the best. You have to have some luck, or you can have no luck, which is what I had going into that first day. But you just have to have a couple things going your way. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how good of a player you are. Dice are dice, and some matchups are just harder than others. You know what I mean? So I wanted to give myself the best chance to win ITC. And I set myself up for it, and then again had a few stumbling blocks. But I want to try it again. I'm going to push again. This coming year, I'll probably play all over the place. 2022, if you're looking forward, is going to be the year where Bandwagon Brad becomes the legend of bandwagons, because armies that I played Craft World as long as either of you have been alive, but my first army was Chaos. We've got Chaos and Eldar coming out, and I might play a tournament with Tau just so I can make sure that somebody's not happy with me, because there's nothing like seeing the sorrow in your opponent's eyes as you bring an army that no one likes. But I'll definitely bounce back and forth between those two factions, because I think they're really interesting. And the thing is I really like armies that play in all phases of the game, where you have your move, you have psych, you shooting, you have good hand-to-hand. And both Chaos and Eldar historically have had a lot of both of those. And I think it's just really fun. It's interesting. You have more plays. And I don't know about you guys, but I've actually been really enjoying the new mission pack. It has more complexity. There's more interaction. There's way more actions. I mean, the other day, I'm monologuing, I apologize, into so many things. I'm segueing like a small child saying something shiny.
You're answering the questions before I can ask them, but you're going right down
but
my list.
I just played a MSU Dark Eldar versus Custodes the other day, and we were playing in 12, where you're planting bombs and diffusing bombs, and I won the game by 13, and the only reason I won the game by 13 is I had 4 bombs and he had 0, because I killed all the prosecutors. I killed basically anybody that could do that effectively. And I just love that idea that you can play around. I was getting massacred, you know what I mean? And I was just still scoring my points, deploying teleport homers, which is the most improved. Did a full workout video. I got so much better. Maybe mental interrogation, but still. Yeah. But man, it just feels really good. It feels like you have a lot of options. And the thing is that everybody gets into these weird standing next to each other. I'm going to kick you and you're going to kick me. Sometimes it doesn't matter how many people you kill. Again, at the end of the game, you look at your victory points. You don't get a gold star for killing a bunch of models. You'd be like, hey, man, I don't have any models left, but I'm winning by 30. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Lucas and Nick, I know you guys have been playing a couple rounds of the new missions lately as well. How have those been going for y'all?
It's fun. I'm definitely noticing what Brad is saying. For me, it's with playing just like melee orc-oriented things, it's a lot more about that, but you want to establish the primary dominance. So, like, you just shut your opponent up by 15, 20, 30 points on the primary, and then you experience the same phenomenon Brad was just talking about. But yeah, overall, I'm really enjoying them. There's a lot more, like Brad was saying, interaction. It's also just nice to have something that isn't solved. When I walked up to a game of like priority targets, toward the end of last season, I was like, okay, I already know how this is going to go. My opponent's playing X, so I know what's going to happen. Oh, I moved the first objective. Okay, game over, kind of thing. So yeah, it's nice to just be able to experience something new for the first time in a long time. Nick, how are you feeling about the new missions?
Yeah, like what Lucas said, I came into like 9th edition like halfway through the competitive season. And so like I showed up and everyone was like had already solved all these missions and I was like playing catch up. It's really nice to like kind of start fresh with everyone. It's like super exciting. And I like that the missions, they have this like weird little mini game, like the secondary primary on each of them. Kind of gives you something that goes out and forces you to fight your opponent. Like a lot of them are like go clear something off an objective, right? And like you also want to hold it. Or like the bombing mission, like you need to go into your opponent's side of the board and like perform an action. And I also like that you can kind of go after certain pieces of your opponent's army. Like, hey, if you didn't bring enough like action doers, like I can like take those out, and now I'm like attacking your primary points, which is how you win the game.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think about the end game stuff? Because I really, really like the fact that you can get some big swings. Like going second is a big deal now in some of these missions. I mean, what is it? Conviction, Ties of Conviction, where you can get you can get an 8-point swing plus you get your 12 because you score at the end of your turn. We had a game the other day where I was just like, all right, this game's over, guys. You know what I mean? Blah blah blah. And they're like, hold on, hold my beer, and then scored a 32 between. Stranglehold and the end game and the mission secondary itself or primary, whatever the hell, the tertiary, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they had a 30-some point turn, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I guess this game was not over. It just, you were saying, Lucas, when you're saying, like, before, when you're playing, like, some missions, especially like priority, you're getting to game turn 3, and you're like, there's absolutely nothing. Either someone has won this game half the time. It's just over, and I don't think that's the case anymore with a lot of these because you have opportunities to score more, and you just have you can outplay your opponent more. I think right now with these missions than you could before. It's not just about brute force. You can literally dance around and do more things.
Yep,
I would agree with that, and I would also say that part of that is not only the endgame stuff, but it's also how deflated primary has been, dropping down to this 4-8-12. The way that you're not able to get as big of a points lead in the first place. So you're starting with fewer points and your opponent has more opportunities to get later points. It definitely feels like there's that late game comeback is very much more of a possibility than it ever was in a
I like that. 100%.
The old mission pack, there was a lot of missions where it's like you start with 2 objectives in your DZ and it's like hold 1, hold 2. So everyone's if you're not getting 10 points a turn, you're in a bad spot. Whereas now it's like you have 1 in your zone and you get 4 points for it. So it's like you got to find your points somewhere else.
And we have to also interact. The thing is that, man, I'm not going to lie. There were certain missions that I really hated playing. Old Retrieval, Overrun, because a ton of armies had mission codex secondaries and stuff where you just went, hey, I'm going to sit on these 3 objectives and never do anything. You're like, oh, this is going to be a super fun game. Oh, great. You're like,
yeah.
And then you're searching for the one time that you could take away 5 points from your opponent, and then you also just sat and did nothing, and you're like, lame. So I just like interactivity. I want to have to do something. I want to have 10 questions that I have to answer every single turn, kind of thing, and I want my opponent to be the same way, where we're back and forth, because I love looking at a game and then trying to break down. How did I win? How did I lose? You're like, what could I have done to win that game kind of thing? Should I have done more secondaries? Should I have held back, especially now that they even put kill points into retrieval and stuff like that. Now that's a big deal because you're like, well, if I go kill something from Tyler's army, he has a chance to kill me. Do I want that piece later in the game, or do I want that points right away? And you have to start making decisions. And I just like having more complexity means a more fun game for me. And that's just literally completely my opinion. So, and I'm old, and half the time I don't know where I am. So take that with a grain of salt.
And you want more complexity?
In my game, I wander away and I don't know where I am at the time, and then I go get a glass of wine and I wander away. It's what I do.
Fantastic.
And I say inappropriate things, and I apologize for them later. That's that's the circle of Brad's life.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So one of the things that we thought would be a really interesting sort of idea to talk about, a lot of players are getting into the hobby right now. We're getting a really big renaissance. We're getting people coming back in, all of that sort of thing. And we've got a lot of players who are trying to take their competitive to the next level. But in order to take your competitive to the next level, you kind of need to know what level you're at the moment. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on sort of how to find where you sit in the pecking order when the meta is so diverse, when everyone's doing different stuff. How do you figure out where you're at personally?
One, it's your knowledge base, hugely on that. If you can rattle off multiple armies, or you can only rattle off your own army, or if you can't rattle off your army, that's a big deal, just your knowledge base. The other is knowing your game plan. I call it the win condition because I came from cards and stuff. If you can play, and a lot of times I do this, I recommend people to do this, deploy your army and play your first turn or two. And if you can't score a max by yourself, then you have to refix your deployment, refix maybe your army. And that kind of also tells you where you're at as far as how much knowledge you have of the overall game plan. And if you can't do that by yourself, obviously your opponent trying to stop you is going to be a bigger difference on that. But the other thing is that to go from not even just knowing where you are as a player, but I think it's important to know what type of player you are, because I see too many people grab a net list and then just try to play with it. Then they're unhappy with the results. But maybe you're playing a shooting list. You're playing a Richard Siegler list, and when you're an all assault player, you know what I mean. And you're not going to put in the same type. You're going to do things wrong. If maybe you're a shooting player and you're playing an assault army, you can't let somebody else tell you what's good. You have to put stuff out. I always say, if somebody tells you can't put a unit on the board, you throat punch them and go about your business, because make your own decisions about what's good, because I have stuff in my army that other people don't, because I like certain movements, certain units that fit my particular style. I bring way more trash than a lot of people bring, but that's just how I play. And that doesn't mean that you play that way. Maybe you're a custodes type player and you like to play with big elite units and do stuff. Figure out who you are, what do you like to play as, and you'll get better results from that for sure, as opposed to trying to make someone else's list that did well with something fit you, even though you don't fit into that. Stop trying to jam your size 14 into that size 9 shoe. It's not going to work out. You're going to have some sore feet, and you're not going to do as well. And you also probably won't play as much because you don't enjoy that army. And reps are reps, man. The more times you play, the more times you put it on the board, you're just going to be better, period.
Yeah, it's going to be more productive for a growing player to just play what they want to, no matter where it sits in the pecking order, than net list something that they're going to hate playing and not going to be the best at.
Yeah. So true. I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got a buddy who's getting in who wants to play Thousand Suns, and he loves Magnus. He's like, this is the coolest thing ever. I want to put him on the table every time. And I can tell you why Magnus is probably terrible, but he's gotten so much better by playing 10 or 12 reps with Magnus than he did playing 1 or 2 every couple weeks without it.
Yeah, because he likes that. You know what I mean? And the thing is there's a lot of people that are great hobbyists. You know what I mean? If you spend 50 to 100 hours in making some unit amazing, don't let somebody tell you that that's a crap unit. It looks great. Put it on the table. Who cares?
Play it. Screw it. Yeah.
In the end, we're literally playing with toys. If you're upset about your toys, you can't tell somebody that doesn't play 40K about what you're mad about, because you have to start the conversation with, when I was playing with other adults with my toy soldiers, here's why I'm mad. They're like, you should stop talking to me.
Oh, so true.
So,
Alrighty.
what do you guys have going on? I want to know about your guys' upcoming season. What factions are you guys thinking about getting into? These are things I need to know.
Well, I bet you can't guess what I'm going to keep playing for the 8th year in a row. Yeah, I'm going to keep grinding on orcs. I was thinking about trying to make Gaz work because in theory he would be good in the Tau, but apparently everyone's taking Farsight and they're taking that relic to ignore Feel No Pains, which coincidentally also ignores Gazkul's damage cap. So that idea went straight in the trash can after 2 seconds. That being said, battle wagons are actually sick.
I so agree. We just put a bunch of those on the board just last week, and man, I actually like that in there. I think in this current meta, battle wagons might be a little bit of a savior at that point in time because they make it so that Tau don't pick up your army and make you like have a tear running.
Yes, they're T8. I'm like, oh, you have a bunch of airburst. Okay, you did 3 wounds to my battle wagon. Okay, I run you over with Mega Knobs now. Cool. Yeah.
Could you talk a little? No, go ahead.
Nope, I was saying. Okay. Go ahead. We're like sitting here.
Lucas, could you talk a little bit about what it is that makes battle wagons particularly effective? What are they doing for you? Okay. Why weren't they used before?
So, for context, it's useful to know what a truck is. Most people know what a truck is. It's a 70-point, 10 wound, 4 up armor, toughness 6 thing that delivers a unit of orcs into the battle. Okay, cool. Transport capacity 12. So, to upgrade from a truck to a battle wagon costs 60 points, and you get 7 attacks at hitting on 2s with exploding 6s at strength 10 minus 2 damage, because you're taking it as a Goff. You get 6 wounds, you get 2 points of toughness, and you get another armor save, and you keep the same transport capacity. It's really, really good.
They went down in points, so.
Yeah. Exactly. They went down 15 points each. So I have 3 of them on my list right now because that's just an extra 45 points. And at the end of the day, like, it really doesn't want to get shot by anti-tank weapons. So if you can just keep it away from those anti-tank weapons and get it nickel and dimed by SMS and air bursting, that's okay. Really, the unit it's scared of, I don't have any practice in the Custody so far, is like those stupid bikers who can just probably kill one. The 3 of them can probably kill it, which is a big shame. But we're going to see how that feels in that matchup. Maybe I can use terrain to my advantage, and even if I lose the wagon, put the bikers in a position where I can kill them. So, yeah. That's the battle wagon. What about you, Tyler and Nick? What are you guys looking
What are you guys bringing? What are you guys planning on bringing?
I'm in a bit of an awkward limbo spot right now because, like, I have of the LVO forces list that, I mean, it went up 25 points. That's nothing. It's functionally identical. And that's fun to play with. Unfortunately, all the reps I have with that into Tau are very tight at best. I played a game and my dice went about as hot as I could ask them to, and I won that game by 2 points, which is not a very reassuring way to play the game. But the bigger deal is the NIDS book is like 4 to 5 weeks out right now. So everything is kind of in limbo. So I'm working on some mono GSC stuff, trying to lean more into those transports. Our transports aren't quite toughness 8, but they can at least stand up to a little bit of AFP and SMS fire. Tau obviously are just kind of the thing that everyone's thinking about right now. So that's really intriguing. McDougal has put together a full custom mono GSC list that has Neophytes, Ridge Runners, Acolytes, Pure Strains, which are all sort of the fun stuff at once, and it has some really good synergies, so I'll play around with that. But I also am in the middle of painting my Hierophant Biotitan, which, like, that deserves a couple of reps. We all talked about that when Crusher came out, and no one actually put it on the table. So someone's got to do it, and I've got one. So I'll probably bring that to an RTT or 2 in the next couple weeks. What about you, Naj?
Yeah, I'm trying to make Necrons work. They're my original competitive army. I picked them up because I thought they looked really cool in 8th edition, and then found out they were not that great. But been finding lists that I really like in them, and they've had 2 buff patches recently. So I thought, why not give them a shot? I know they feel pretty weak into Tau, all the indirect and just the ranges. And
you haven't played the matchup yet, by the way.
Necrons being a slow army. I know, we're playing it today.
What do you think that they need, though? Because I feel like Necrons are they're like an army of renown away from being a very competitive army. Because they have all the tools, especially after they made so many things core, which should have already been core, but we'll move on from that. But like, what do you feel as a Necron player that you need to be just that next step? Because I feel like you're this close with OBSEC and race and, just things being core. Protocols are bad, but
Yeah.
we'll just pretend that those don't exist and move on with our lives. But what do you need as a Necron player to be, I feel good going into this tournament?
I think I would love some better troops choices. Like OBSEC feels really important in these new missions, especially OBSEC units that can do actions. And Warriors being 13 points a model for like how easy they are to kill is a bit of a shame. I mean, like one of their, strengths was being like, okay, you can bring them in like a big blob and like they can hide in cover or something, but Tau like have blast weapons that ignore cover, so I don't know how long like a 20-man Brit could live against them.
Yeah.
One turn.
The thing in a lot of people's heads probably right now is, well, aren't Necrons the everything is OBSEC army? And I'm guessing you're saying you'd rather not have to spend a chapter tactic on getting access to that ability. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I've been testing Nova because I used to play OBSEC for a while, and I found that there were often games that I either like barely win by 5 or 6 points because of using the OBSEC, right? And this was back when Primary gave 5 points. Now Primary only gives 4 points, so it's like that like gap that I win by might be like slower and slower, or smaller and smaller. But I've been trying Novak more because I like killing my opponent, right? The OBSEC list, sometimes you charge something or like shoot something and it just like lives and then it like punch you back and you're like, oh, okay, that's a bummer. Like I just lost, right? And the game's been a lot about trading pieces. So I've been trying out Novak just because I want to actually be able to kill my opponent. And if I do win, like win by a lot instead of like just barely win by a little or like lose by a little.
Novak is a much higher damage output for sure.
Yeah. So I've been testing that, and it's like, is the increased offensive output worth the loss on board control? And into some armies, like, what is it, Marines, like more elite armies, it's great. You just like cleave right through them and you win by a lot. But into something like Lukas and I were playing, he was playing Thin City, like racks into me, and he just had way more OBSEC and like took all my primary. It's like I can't kill them quickly enough because Necrons have an issue where they have like low output of attacks. Like your guys hit really hard, but they only have like five attacks each, maybe in Novak. So.
Yeah, I can see that. It's just it's the same thing when I put together Necron armies. That it always feels like they're close, but they're very very close. But you can't put the same thing together and keep doing it.
Yeah.
So you can't.
Oh, sorry.
You're trying to be a melee army without any way to fall back and charge, advance and charge.
Yeah, you just don't have the same tools.
Yeah.
You're close. Like I was saying, you're very close, but you don't have what the other people do. So basically, every time you exchange, it feels like you're coming out just below whatever your opponent can do, and you're always close, but you're not winning those exchanges. So you're just not going to win that. So in the course of the game, every time you go in, you're slightly worse than your opponent is. That's how the Necrons feel. Close, but you always lose every exchange in points and mobility and damage and durability even though you're supposed to be super durable. So it's like, again, I feel like they're very close to being very viable, but they're just not.
Yeah.
Like you were saying though, Brad, I do see that like the quality of the data sheets has improved, and like we are actually kind of how you said, like one army of renown from it being really viable. Like if they made an army of renown that was like, yeah, 1 CP, 1 core unit can advance and charge, 1 CP, a core unit can fall back and charge. That would probably put Necrons, I don't know. I have never played them, so this is completely anecdotal, not anecdotal at all. This is just my head theory. Like maybe that would make them A tier, A minus. Like a lot of their, like every time I get hit by Scorpex, I'm like, God damn, this unit hits so hard.
I mean, but before Tau, I really, really felt that we had a really good. I mean, going to LVO, we had so many armies that were viable to win that whole tournament. Yeah. And if you think about even 2 months before that, two or 3 months, we literally had a meta where if you didn't bring not one of 4 armies, or 4 factions, I mean, literally one of 4 army builds, you were not winning that tournament. I'm sorry. You just, I mean, maybe you Sean made it up a little bit, did some wizardry, but typically it's just, that was it. And we went in, it's been very spread out, and I like that a lot. Tau might mess that up a little bit, but I do think that if Necrons had a few things, they would just be put into that people that can win any tournament kind of feel. You know what I mean? Because whilst everybody's going to complain about their stuff, there's only a few armies that are very, very below the curve. IG, obviously, because they have the oldest book, and then you've got, of course, Chaos complaining because they've been told they were going to get 2 months for 2 years.
New
Brett, I'm
chosen
not sure
kit.
if you may have covered your microphone or something. Your audio dropped out a lot for a second there. There you go. Okay, cool. So it seems like we're really at a turning point in the meta where we seem to be talking about the before Tau times and the after Tau times. And if we have no way of, exactly, yeah. So in the year 1 AT, there's no going back. How can we be adapting? What do you've got more reps into Tau than anyone else on the screen does. What should we be looking at generally across factions to go forward?
It's really hard right now because there's a couple factions that feel very invalidated. MSU GSC, MSU Dark Eldar feel rough, man. Like I've played, like I said, a decent amount of games with and against, basically with that. Certain armies feel better. Transports obviously help, but they just have the tools to get there. Is the thing is they're very, very mobile, and they put out a lot of damage, and their indirect just crazy. Because usually you're like, hey, this is a high output damage army. What am I going to do? I'm going to screen. I'm going to hide. And then you're like, oh, I can't really do either of those because they're just going to be wherever they want to be, and they have all the indirect in the universe. I mean, everybody complained about one unit of Hive Guard, shooting really well. You're like, how about if I just do that with my army? You're like, oh, cool. That seems very good. But higher toughness things like Lukas was talking about, having threats that can punish them for showing up, having things that can still play the objective. You're going to have reserves against Tau is really what I think. It's a very fine balancing act where you just don't want them to take the entire board and make it so you don't have great places to come in. But I really do feel that you're going to have reinforcements against Tau because you just can't stand there and just have them cherry pick every unit that they don't want on the board. You're going to have things that come out and still be able to do these mission secondaries, actual secondaries and stuff like that. Because if you clear space, because the army's still not super crazy durable. You still can just put damage on them. I mean, creatures go away if you look at them. And crisis suits, you still just want, even though they can fire into combat, you still can touch them. If the problem goes into, can you get there? And I don't have the answer to that yet. We've got a lot of, in the old Florida house, they've been throwing a lot of testing out and talking about it. The consensus is just play Tau. So I'm like, well, how about if you're playing against it? They're like, just play more Tau. So Custodes are decent into them. You've got the speed. I mean, it's basically you're leaning on the bikes to do a lot of work, though. But your opponent knows that if they're a good player, so they're going to just shoot the bikes, and go, hey, did you put buffs on that bike unit? Well, I'm going to shoot that bike unit because they have to go away. And once they go away, the Custodes army has very little mobility, so they can just dance around them and just ping them the entire game. So I don't have the answer yet. I think that Tau are very, very good. Tau the wheels can fall off. It's the same thing that, Tau, you play GSC on that. If you mess up, the wheels can just fall off that card. Like if you make some movement errors and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just got touched by multiple charges, the game's over. But if you space well and you don't make mistakes the entire game, it feels like the Tau opponent does have the advantage throughout the game. We'll see how it goes through there. I think actually some weird armies like Crusher Stampede, even though I don't want to play it, just think if they go first and they just YOLO up, they can just pick up a lot of that army. And again, so much of it's TA. TA is just a big deal on that. So they have, even at their best guns, besides, the one big crazy gun that everybody's worried about that 90% of everybody else isn't. Everybody's like, oh my God, this is going to do 12 wounds with mortals. You're like, Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about 700 air bursting shots and a bunch of cyclic and plasma coming at me. If you want to take 3 hammerheads, I encourage you all day long to shoot me with 3 shots as opposed to shooting me with 1,000 shots.
Do you think there's any validity, Brad? You said that the traditional tools for dealing with an army like this with high mobility and high damage is to screen and use trash units to keep them away from your important stuff. Is there any validity if they're just going to, like you said, dodge that, to throw those screening units in the garbage, or not in the garbage entirely, but like take fewer of them and just take more meat and potatoes damage dealing units?
Maybe, but the problem is that the game is so heavy on actions. Like if we're playing 12 and I have to plan explosives, defuse explosives, and maybe one of my best secondaries is teleport homers or rods, that's a lot of actions a turn, man. That's like 3 actions a turn if I want to do all those things. And maybe it's not the right mission to do that, but I still want options. And I feel like as soon as I start doing that, then I don't have the same options into everyone else that's not playing Tau. So
Yeah, that's fair.
yes and no. It's one of those things where, hey, I'm now beating Tau 60% of the time, and I just took my win ratio against everything else, and I threw it in the dumpster. I'm like, well, crap,
Yeah,
Can I only play Tau now? So
yeah, you can tech for. I mean, there are some saving graces with Tau, right? They, like you said, they're very squishy once they put themselves in front of you. Breachers have to be within 80 inches to do their damage, so then they instantly die. A Devilfish has 13 wounds now for some reason and blows up for D6 mortals, but it's still just T7. 3 up armor, no invuln.
They just have a lot of tools. You're just going to have to get into the army. You don't want to nickel. You can't nickel and dime Tau. That's the thing.
No. Yeah.
They're winning that. If you're trying to be very cagey and play a long game, you're going to have no models left and you're going to be sad.
You need to chunk them. Yeah. You have to blunt their offensive output or they are going to table you in like 2 or 3 turns.
Right. I've seen some games that flip really quick, though. I mean, if they make a couple of the Dark Eldar matches, getting into playing kind of an MSU, 1 unit Grots, bunch of units of Hellions, bunch of units of Rax and stuff like that. We've had a couple games now where it does hurt them a huge amount. You get any of your melee into them, and you can start just picking stuff up just with a volume of attacks going in, especially with multi-damage. So, and they don't have a lot of stuff to stop your mortals. You know what I mean? They can put Fennel Pain on a couple things, but mortal wound spam, especially with psychics, because they're just not denying it unless they take the talisman for the 1 deny. So I'm not really worried about that one guy that's going to roll 2 dice 1 time and thing. But you have psychics, you have movement. I think it's going to be, you're going to be looking for literally mistakes, I think, more than anything, because they have a lot of stuff. Like we're literally right now, one of the tables is playing Tau, and GSC went first. It was GSC Hive Mind, and basically, got the pure strains move first, and managed to touch a Devilfish and then just wrap a unit. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is you're looking for is wrap multiple things and just run up. Make them start to do desperate breakouts and stuff like that. And later in the game, they don't have that option. You're just looking for. I mean, it's standard tactics on that. It just feels bad right now because of the fact that Tau is the same way when Custodes just came out. It feels like to play them at a good level feels very easy. Everybody's finding the secret sauce kind of now. I mean, it's going to change a little bit, but you can make a really good Tau army by just picking out the obvious choices of, hey, these are good units. Same thing with Custo. Same thing with Grey Knights. When Grey Knights came out, they only have a couple data sheets. Okay, the Codex came out a minute ago. I unwrapped it and went, oh, this is my army? Cool. We should just play a game. I've already got the army. It's done. That's kind of how I feel with this right now is we'll get more counters as we get more play, and we're all going to be a little sad-faced while we figure it out kind of thing. I think they're going to be very tough into the meta, and they're going to change the meta a lot. But I don't think they're the all-powerful overlords. I think they're going to be an OP-ish army that you're going to have to play your best game every time.
Yeah. I'm curious about sort of going the opposite direction of what Lukas was running, because in the Tau games I've played, there is no overpowering them that I could find, but their scoring doesn't seem very good. They run into a lot of don't have a third secondary situations. I feel like they'll capitalize really well on this ability to have late game swings, but it seemed easy to run the scoreboard up against them early, at least.
Kind of, but if they're bringing like lots of nonsense breachers and stuff to go along with that, especially like, I mean, let's be honest, like crude hounds are 24 points. You just take them and go, hey, do actions, guys. You're like, for 24 points, you're like, you get that look of like, really? Crude hounds? Awesome. So, but like, I think that the smart players are going to realize that you can bring kind of a lot of trash for very little points in Tau to do missions. And I'm more worried about that than I am just their firepower, because they can start. That is the original thought I was having. I'm like, I'll just outscore them. But then they have multiple units of crude hounds and things of that nature that are just scoring points. They're just doing mission secondaries and stuff like that. I think those lists are going to be way more scary, again, than things that come out with if you only have crisis suits, you only have long strike and stuff like that. Yeah, for sure, you're going to be able to outscore that army because it's only damage. But you get a more well-rounded Tau army. I think a well-rounded Tau army, apparently I can't talk. A well-rounded Tau army is terrifying played by someone good, because they're just going to run up the score on you, while you're trying to hope to get into them. If they're bringing all these small units and they're performing all these secondaries and they are scoring, and the problem is they can clear out flanks so easily that all of a sudden they're just doing a teleport homer in where you used to have units that blocked out. You know what I mean? So you're just like, yeah. And also they're just showing up and getting there super fast because they get out after the devilfish moves. So you just it's very hard to screen this army because of its speed. They made it very, very mobile. Tau used to be, we kill everything and we move 2 inches a turn and kind of inch up. Now they're like YOLO. They painted everything red, and now it's just fast.
I mean, it is Farsight. That's at least thematic.
Yeah, it's true. It is exactly. So it's a good army we'll have to come up with. We'll see. When we haven't even got an FAQ yet. We literally haven't even played him into a tournament. So I never want to be gloom and doom. It's just everybody thinks everything's OP when it first comes out. There's going to be counters. Their counters just aren't as easy to see. I mean, there's counters to Crusher, there's counters to Custodes. You see them right away. There's counters to when GK come out. The problem with Tau is that it's they have a ton of cheap units and stuff like that, and a lot of firepower. So it gives a different basically problem, because it's not. I'm hitting you with these 3 things and they're super big and powerful and I only have to deal with that. You're like, you got a lot of idiots everywhere. And I have to clear them out. And oh yeah, this unit over there keeps putting 100 shots into me, so I should probably do something about that. But it's shooting me from out on the side, and my tanks are dead because 2 plasmas and a cyclic shot my tank from a squad over here. And they're cheap, man. 3 crisis suits put out like a stupid amount of output, and you're like, how much does that unit cost? And you're just like, oh, okay. So we'll see on that. Again, I don't want to say to anybody that it's like, oh, Tower here, the game's over. I just think that they're a little bit of an OP army that we have to figure out. We haven't had enough reps into it, to be very fair. To be fair, so.
You had mentioned that they don't even have an FAQ yet. A lot of people have been lauding this book as being kind of riddled with a bunch of silly loopholes and whatnot in a dark technomancer kind of way. What is your philosophy on that kind of stuff? If you have a tournament this weekend, if you have a tournament next weekend, is it worth doing everything you can to bodyguard long strike from 6 inches away, things like that? Taking free drones on hazards, or do you just play for what's going to be real?
I play for what's going to be real. I'm very against that, because I think that you get false positives in what you think is going to go on, because I'm usually testing for later on and things of that nature, WTC type stuff. You know what I mean? Just. I don't want to think that something's good because of rules, loopholes, and stuff like that. And then you think that a philosophy works and it just doesn't. And also, it also cheapens your win, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, like if you win a tournament and he used a bunch of like asterisk rules, everybody's like, yeah.
Good job, but also, really, was that a good job?
Yeah, like you just shot me with long strike all game long, and that's not a thing. Yeah, like let's be fair.
If your rules sound too good to be true, they probably are.
Exactly.
Or you're playing Advec. Or you're playing Advec.
That's why there was, tiers, B tier, A tier, S tier, AdMech tier when they were doing it. So, they were by themselves. and the thing is that, and I have to give GW props though, because of the fact since the balance change we've had. Listen, we can bitch as much as we want, but the game has been pretty even. For most, everybody can win. Yes, you're always going to have certain books that are going to be a little bit better, but they also are a company that sells models, so they're going to put out everything's going to have a little bit of codex creep because, well, they want us to buy their crap. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, let's be honest. Whatever the new, if you've got a new sculpt, a new model, weird. That thing always seems to have really good rules. So it's a weird coincidence. That new thing that I have to buy is really good in the rulebook. I can't understand what's happening there.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm a big fan of that strategy because I want to buy and paint the new stuff anyway. Giving me the ability to actually put it on the tabletop, yeah, I'm absolutely going to buy it.
The thing I'm most excited about this entire year is aspect warriors that aren't doing the stand people pose. And Eldar are literally the fastest, most agile army in the entirety of 40K. Every single dude's pose going with his hands up in the air. Just like, why are you doing this? Like, I've got a bunch of Tusken Raiders as my aspect warriors. Everybody's got their hands like they just got pulled over by the cops.
Tusken Raider Aspect Warriors, that actually sounds pretty cool.
I'm psyched. I just want to play fast, cool stuff.
Yep.
Because in my head, again, as long as I'm still power gaming, but in my head, the fluff's still there. So I want to bring the coolest army also, but I still have to win with it because I'm sad.
Sure. Yeah. So you had said earlier that you're planning to bandwagon like nobody's business right now. If you had a GT next weekend, what would you be taking right now?
Tau.
Fair enough.
There's multiple reasons to play that, though, because it's a really good army. It's a very mobile army. It has a high output, and no one's gotten enough reps into it to be good against it yet. If I would do it, I would probably only play Tau once in the tournament, because after that, everybody's going to start teching for it. It's the same thing with Thick City had its moment, and then literally 900 people teched against it in OVO, and it had problems because everybody's like, yeah, this army won every GT for like 2 weeks, and then we had a holiday break, and during that holiday break, everyone went, that's not happening again. Just put everything they could possibly do to kill that army, and that just happens. And I think that's going to happen a bit against Tau, and people are going to start to. We're all going to start to figure out at least the tools that you need. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Is it more things like you were saying, Lucas? Is it just more punching? Is it more just quality output? Can we play them? I mean, Tyler was saying maybe we'll just be able to point them out. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Whatever that strategy is, everybody's going to try to turn into it with their faction. And I think it takes a little while, though. It just takes reps. Again, I still think the book's Tau's going to be probably a little OP. Maybe it'll get nerfed immediately. Maybe it won't. But I think we got to wait a little bit to figure out just how we're playing against it. I mean, multiple armies have been nerfed when they didn't need to be nerfed because the problem is the nerfs take a long time. Maybe they take less now because we're talking about every 3 months doing point changes. But before, think about a lot of the nerfs that came out. You're like, this particular thing was super tough. Inceptors, man, those guys are really too tough. And then by the time they got nerfed, nobody cared that they existed because the meta just changes, you know what I mean, in the way. And you have to be very careful. You got to be touching. I'm very excited about that 3 month thing, by the way, because you can touch things too soft. And I'm also okay with something being a little too OP if they're constantly doing just a little bit about it. You know what I mean? You're like, it's not, hey man, this unit's broken. See you in 2 years. You know what I mean? Figure it out until then. We're gonna get changes all the time, and I like that a bunch. I mean, it just gives me more hope because I know that I'm not gonna have to deal with forever. I mean, I played in the dark days of 40K. I mean, there was super amazingness when I started. GW was very involved, kind of like they're getting now. But then we had that middle, like when I think it was 5th, 6th, 7th, were just, well, especially 7th, things were broken and they just went, well, I'll see you in another edition. You know what I mean? Like, you have to deal with that. I mean, I never want to get back to where we were at the end of 7th, where there was 3 total armies and they were all stars that you could play to win a tournament, and or you had an unfun time. You're like, hey man, I just cast invisibility. I have a rerollable 2-up save and a feel no pain, and I can dump big shots onto something else. You're like, this is going to be a fun time for a new player. So I hit 1 in 36, and then you fail 1 in 36. I'm not going to be a statistician, but I feel that's not a lot of saves that you're going to be taking.
As it turns out, yeah, that's interesting. So oh no, go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, I was just on the topic of hearkening back to old armies and thinking about how they translate to the past or the present. How have past armies, either that you've played or that you've played against, teach you skills about how armies that are coming out right now play? Do you see any of that? Like when you play against new Custodes, do you think like, oh, this reminds me of Tau from 7th edition or 8th edition?
There's a ton of that. I'm not going to lie, because I've been playing since 2nd, and all of those, you kind of go back to strategies of, and I kind of call them battlefield roles. When you start to realize what these bikes are like, these other fast-moving, durable, hard-hitting units, and then this is this, and then you kind of just go, well, what did I do against that before? And then you kind of use the same, you undust the old tactics and just use the same thing. Well, against this army, I have to dance around. Against this army, I have to separate, and then I have to kill them. It's a star army, so I have to make them extend out, and then I'm going to jump on, the pieces that aren't within all the buffs, kind of thing. And that's a great question, man, because I do that a lot, to tell you the truth, when I'm looking at things, and you do harken back to, well, what did I do against these stars? What did I do against Necron flyers? What did I do against, whatever unit, whatever style of army? And that is a lot, because of the fact that I can use my fact that I'm 1,000 and been playing forever, because I've seen a lot of these things, and they just retread, because a lot of the same archetypes come up again. They're a different army, but it's the same style. It's another archetype. This is a star build. This is a super mobile build. This is an MSU build. This is whatever. And you see a lot of the same type of things come out. This is another version of Ovasa Star from a million years ago. If anybody's old enough for that one,
Nope.
I don't think I'm just standing here by myself. I'm just talking about, I sent you guys some 8 tracks. You should listen to that music I sent you. But yeah,
that's also true for playing different armies yourself, right? Like one thing that happened for me recently was, I've played orcs faithfully for 12 years. I've basically played nothing else at a tournament. I played Thousand Suns at Slanesh just for the hell of it, because I couldn't stay the whole time. And one thing about playing a couple games at a Thousand Suns was, at the tournament beforehand, was I learned about what it was like to play more patiently. I'm used to just like ooga booging my whole army into the midfield and seeing what survives. But every once in a while, it actually pays off to like take a second at the beginning of your turn to be like, oh, I don't need to rush out. I can just do 1 or 2 things to get some points. I can like make my opponent make the first move. I don't have to rush everything out. And Thousand Suns played really heavily into that. And every once in a while, I translated that into some orc games, where I'm like, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to raise 2 or 3 banners. Okay, over to you. Let's see what you do, because right now I'm winning the points game.
I'm a big fan of that. And the thing is, I also think that even if you're a one faction, you're just like, this is what I play. In your test games, be the guy that plays the other army, because knowing other armies will help you win against those armies so well.
Yep.
I play so many different. I bandwagon a lot. I don't recommend it always doing it, but I spend a lot of time in 40K. That's what I do. So I'm up on the rules all the time, even though we all get them wrong. So let's be honest. Somebody's going to mess something up. Just give it to them. But the thing is that if you play test and play the other army versus your friends, your play test partners and stuff like that, you learn so much, because you also start to learn what you can do to beat that army, because all of a sudden, it goes from that invincible army to, oh, there's some setups, there's some weaknesses while you're playing that, because you start to figure out the hard times you're having playing that army, and then you can start to exploit those things and pressure your opponent into not being in his comfort zone. And that's the thing is I talk about a lot on that, is you can't let people just sit. That Tau player is going to win every time if you never do anything to him. You know what I mean? If you let him only answer 2 questions a turn, he's going to get those 2 questions right. Give him 10 questions. How am I scoring my secondary? How am I boxing out? How am I doing this? Take some pieces away from him. Then you have a game win. That's why I talked about that complexity on that. I just like both of us to have to do our thing. If you're playing somebody and they get to just sit and never feel pressured, well, they're probably not going to make any mistakes. You know what I mean? So you have to force your opponent into making a mistake. You set them up, and then you capitalize on what maybe they didn't even think was a mistake. You're just making them, forcing people into doing stuff. Impose your will on the board.
Is it easy for you to switch between different factions, Brad? Like, you've said over and over again that you're kind of a bandwagony type of player, which is, to each their own.
A couple of them are super.
Is it easy? Yeah. So is it easy to like pivot from Drukhari to XYZ?
It's super easy for me to pivot in armies that play the same.
Okay.
And I know the rules because I play a very MSU infantry style, and I like to play with a lot of stuff. So armies that play like that, and in a couple of the armies I played forever. I mean, Chaos and Eldar I played for 22 years. So I can bounce back to those because the rules change, but the rules don't change that much. They have most of the same units and stuff like that. The newer armies or things that I haven't played a ton are actually significantly harder to jump into. So I tend to bounce around to armies that I've already spent a lot of time with and go back and forth with those. And things that play just similar are just easier to pick up. So if I pick up something that has a way different play style, I probably won't do well with it, unless I put reps into it. I'm kind of a rep player on that because even though I bounce around a lot, I put in a lot of games. I just don't sleep. Be uncomfortable and just don't sleep very much. I heard it's super good for your health. But I do a lot from. I deploy on TTS. I play a decent amount of TTS. I deploy on TTS like a crazy amount though, depending on what tournament terrain I'm going into. So if I'm going to go to a GW tournament, I'm going to deploy my army a bunch and see what the footprint is. And that helps me a lot because I show up to tournaments and I pretty much know what my secondaries are, what my deployment is, and my first turn before I'm ever doing anything on the board. And so I always just have more time usually than a lot of people do because I'm done. I've basically shaved 15 to 20 minutes off any of my games. So it allows me to bounce around a little bit because I just prep a little bit more. I need my homework. I'm old. I need to get everything ready. I write everything down, like physically, not on tablets and stuff.
Still doing homework this far into life, Brad? Oh man, you got to move on from school by now.
It makes it easy though because you can't show up. I can't show up. How about that? A lot of people do. I can't show up to a tournament unless I've gotten ready for it because I want to be relaxed. I'm going to show up and I'm going to sit across from Tyler because I'm across from him in the camera setup right now, in my view. And I'm going to sit down and I already know where I'm going to deploy. I know what secondaries I'm going to take so I can just talk and drink my wine. I don't care where he deploys. 85 to 90% of my deployment is already set because you only have so many places you can go. You can do the back and forth and thing, but there's like 2 things in his army that I'm worried about as far as shooting a specific thing in my army. Hey, look, I've got 2 ruins. Big shock. Most of my army's going behind the 2 ruins. It's not like whoa, I didn't see that deployment coming. Just put your stuff down. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. But the more homework I do, the more relaxed, the more fun I have. We can make jokes. We know what's on. I don't feel that I'm pressured in time or anything else. And I also don't feel pressured to choose my game plan and my tactics and stuff like that. I already know them. So now I can just enjoy myself. I can drink my red wine. I can play the game. I'm going to try to win, but I also want to have just a good time. And that's the thing. Again, we're playing with toy soldiers. So anything that can help me have a better time at the event, I'm going to do that beforehand. And it's not like I spend forever doing this. I mean, you can literally deploy your army in 20 minutes. You can look over your secondaries for 20 minutes to an hour. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm doing this 30-hour work week of just 40K for this tournament. I'm doing a couple of days, just looking over stuff. And it makes such a huge difference in my enjoyment level and my win percentage. Since I do a little homework, I win a lot of games. You know what I mean? So I really think it helps like a ton. The more relaxed and confident you are going into a tournament, the more you're going to enjoy, the more you're going to win. And the thing is everybody wants to win more games than they lose. You know what I mean? So that helps. But the thing is that if I know more about my opponent's army also, it's going to be a big deal because I don't feel I don't feel gotcha. And I don't mean gotcha from like my opponent scam me or something, but like if you don't know that Mr. Worldwide from Custodes with the plate can heroic across the board, it's going to feel real not great when he steals an objective from you and kills your unit in the middle of the game. And you're like, oh, I win that game 9 out of 10 times, but not this time because you don't want to find out turn 4 that a rule exists. You know what I mean? So doing a little bit of homework makes me more relaxed, and makes me have a better win percentage and just enjoy the game more. Yep. So, yes, do that.
I had a.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had like a little weird hypothetical. You're talking about that when the armies that like play to your strengths, like the kind of like movement and like kind of like trash based armies, are good, right? That's like what you kind of pivot between. It's a bit of a weird hypothetical, but like say there's like an army that plays to your skill level, plays to your skill strengths, and none of them are good, and like your goal is to win. Would you try your hardest to like make one of those armies work, knowing it's not like the strongest army? Or would you pivot to a stronger army that like plays vastly differently and learn how to play that way?
Both. I will probably try to hold on and see if I can make the other army go. But in the end, I should have a hat that says no loyalty. It's because I will bump to anything. I won't play anything that I don't think is fun. For instance, I didn't play AdMech because I just don't have any fun playing AdMech. I thought it was by far the strongest thing, but I don't like it. So it wasn't my playstyle, so I never jumped on the AdMech bandwagon, even though it probably would have been better for me because it played better into things. Mm-hmm. But in the end, I don't want to play an army that I don't like. So I would try both, and I would try to make the best army out of the top bad army, I guess, that I like, before I would play something I don't like. There's stuff that I would just play, though. I mean, I'll try to play. It's something that plays even remotely similar. I would try to take the top army that's as close to something that I like in the first place, but I'll never play something that I just don't like. Because, again, it's still toy soldiers. I want to win, but I want to win badly. But I don't want to win enough where I'm not going to have fun. Like, it's just, again, I'm not going to do something that I don't like with my free time. And when I'm playing with toys. If I don't like playing with these toys, I'm just not going to play with those toys. So I would lean towards playing the bad army and make it as good as I can. But I'm going to dip my toes in to see if there's something else that maybe is slightly outside my box. And I've done that. And I typically end up coming back to other things and making them as much. I mean, in the last 2 years, I've played 7 factions. So I'm willing to bounce around. But I play like a lot of the same things. If you look at my armies, it's just a lot of infantry based. When I played Raven Guard, it was infantry based. When I played Salamanders, it was infantry. I played Drakari, it's mostly infantry. I like to play a lot of MSU stuff. I played elite armies and stuff like that, but I just don't have as much fun doing that. So I tend to fall back into the same types because it also wins. It's one in every edition. I played, I've done well for a long time. So the thing is that you try to give yourself the tools to win. You at least have a chance to win every game, even if you're not favored into it. You know what I mean? If you're playing old AdMech and stuff like that, you still have wins. I mean, I've got tons of wins. You played into when orcs were silly with just planes and buggies. There's still just win conditions to play that. You know what I mean? Into that. We've won games against it. Yeah. It was a problem. It got nerfed. Cool. But there's always going to be something probably better than what you're playing, unless you're always playing exactly the bandwagon. And sometimes the bandwagon is just not for you. Like I said, the AdMech example, I'm not going to play anything that I don't think is fun. So
as hosts, we're in like 3 vastly different spots on this because I have the easiest time because I'm massively faction loyal and my faction is orcs, and I think I can always make something decent work there. Tyler is kind of, you can speak to your own position, Tyler, but the way I see you is you kind of, you have some solid lists, but maybe the meta counters them just because, AFPs counter Devil Gants. So, there is some kind of flux of, where do I sit right now with what I want to play bugs-wise? And then Nick is in a completely different spot because he's like, do I try to make Necrons work? That's a big question. I don't even know if it's worth trying to answer. And that's something we've struggled with lately. Is I don't know the answer to that crucial question that Nick's trying to answer. Right? Like, should he try to make Necrons work? Should he bounce to another faction? He's kind of in flux, and I'm like, I don't really know what to tell you.
I would main if I was doing your Necron thing, I would main Necrons and I would play something else and see if you like it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing.
The biggest thing on that is the biggest thing for TTS. As much as I don't like TTS sometimes, TTS is fantastic for I didn't have to drop $1,000 on a new army to find out I didn't like it. You know what I mean? So I go throw it on that, but find something that plays that style and see if you like it better. I mean, to be fair, it's if you're playing an army that's a little bit higher tier, it does feel easier and better sometimes. I know you guys like certain factions. Orc always has options, by the way. You're cheating on orcs because of the fact that like you have like 10 different armies you can bring in orcs. Necrons have like, I don't know, 2 or 3 maybe builds that you can throw down. It's not the same. So if I were you, I would probably put my toe in the pool and try some other stuff out. You know what I mean? Because maybe you find something that plays exactly the same way. I mean, there actually are a couple Marine armies that play very similar to Necrons, so they're just, to be honest, they're just better.
Yeah.
As far as just points, and that's just a math thing. If you look down and you're a dork like I do, you do points per wound, points per attack, points, efficiency, and you just take that stuff and see. And the thing is that you go back to it. Again, it's not about just winning every game. It's about having fun with toys. I mean, you want to get better at it. Reps make you better with it. Playing the best army obviously gives you a little bit better % chances to win. But in the end, are you having a good time? I want to have the best time with the best army that I can possibly put on the board.
Yeah, wins also feel better when they're with factions that are underpowered, right? If I can train myself and work hard enough with the faction that I really want to play and manage to get some wins, even if I'm not smashing every tournament I go to because I'm paying the meta stuff. But if I can just do decently enough, like that feels really good when I'm like, hey, look, maybe it wasn't against the best player playing Tau, but like I managed to beat Tau with Necrons this one time. That feels pretty damn awesome.
100%.
There's a lot,
And there's a lot to be said to knowing your army inside and out too, though, because you can play when the wheels start to fall off. You can still have plays, and you won't. If you bounce around too much, you'll never be a master. You'll just be the jack of all trades. You have to put some serious reps in to know what can happen if everything starts to go bad. You know what I mean? And I get a little bit of that. I can bounce around a little bit more just because I've been playing forever. And I've got tons of reps. I've got a zillion reps in with Chaos. Like I've got a zillion reps in with Craft World. I've got the most reps with Craft World, like laughably so, because I haven't played a ton of Chaos in the last few years because of reasons. And
being Chaos.
Yeah.
Well, something that like Tyler did really well. He kept playing bugs back when they were not super strong. So when they the new rules dropped, you were in perfect position to just.
Yeah, everyone else was jump starting and he was already sprinting.
Exactly, and all your stratagems and stuff like that. I mean, we had the talk before. Actually, before I went to LVO, we were talking about matchups and stuff, and I was talking to Lennon about it. And I was like, I'm thinking about debating on taking GSC forces before a lot of the stuff happened to me. And I was a little worried about it because I go, I'm probably never going to win the match against when we're talking about him. I go, I don't know if I can beat you with that just because you have so many more reps. Anybody that just has if you're playing same army on same army, the person that's played it a million more times just has the advantage. Just period. Mm-hmm. Just by the experience on that. So it's a big deal to be a faction expert. You know what I mean? So you can be a faction expert on a couple things, but it's really how many hours have you put in with that particular faction, and then go from there.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about how, as an individual, faction hopping, meta chasing can be good and can be bad. I'm curious what you think on sort of the bigger scale, especially in places like in our Pacific Northwest meta. Liquidity has gone way up as things like printing are becoming more popular, model sharing is becoming more popular. It feels like anyone in our area can have any army at the drop of a hat, and that pushes things very differently when suddenly everyone's playing all the meta stuff. Does that feel like the direction the game needs to be moving, or does that seem like something that's going to break some of the systems GW has in place?
I don't think so, but I do worry. it does come into a little bit on the fact that we need to make sure we have book balance, at least close to balance. There's always going to be books that are better, like I was saying before. But with the ability for people to, well, everybody get on that, you don't want to see an entire tournament of Tau, an entire tournament of Grey Knights, like we had at two LVOs ago, when I think, what was it, like 30-some% of the field brought Iron Hands. You know what I mean? And that's an issue, man. If like I played an entire tournament, I think, what was it? LVO when it's still too soon for me. When I tied cities and lost in the tiebreaker, ran choking in LVO again. But I played Iron Hands for all 3 games in the semis, the quarters, the semis, and the finals. Were all Iron Hands, same list. And then I played, I think, 2 or 3 of my games going into that. So I played an entire weekend where I just played Iron Hands. And I was like, this feels ridiculous. And I don't want to get into that type of meta. The best tournaments ever are when you play all different factions. Like I play 5 games, I want to play 5 different armies. That feels great. It's super fun. I don't want to play the same thing every single time. And that is a problem because with people being able to get whatever they want, is that they're just going to grab whatever they want. I mean, a lot of times we've had before, people didn't faction jump because they just didn't have access to it before you had printing and everything like that. And a lot of our groups are a lot better. I've always had like a little bit of one-up. My local group here is just super good on. We just buy models and everybody just kind of uses whatever they want. So we've always had a little bit of that. And that was big, but everybody's able to do that kind of thing now. But besides printing, we have larger groups and stuff like that are meeting. And I love that, by the way. Just having a good community is super, super awesome. But it does mean that we have to balance faster. And the 3-month thing hopefully accomplishes that, because I don't want that Iron Hands meta was really annoying. You know, you only play that, you're like, oh cool, I'm playing the same list again. Okay, cool, you know. This feels like I'm just testing against the house as opposed to tournaments. I don't get that.
Yeah. I think you covered your mic again, but we heard most of that. It was very nasally, but we got it.
Sorry.
You're good, man.
No worries.
Again, I'm on my country grog. There's that better.
The butter container getting in the way again.
It was. My geriatric cancer. But I'm very excited for this year. So as long as they do it even remotely right, I think that we're going to have, I'm just super excited there because we have a lot of big faction keywords coming back to back to back to back.
Yep.
That's a lot of, Craft has a lot of armies that are probably going to come out. Historically, we've had a lot of different builds related to Craft Chaos. We've had silly lots of different builds about Chaos. And you have Chaos, CSM/Demons both coming out, especially this year. And we've got Tyranids in the middle of that. You know what I mean? So, and we just had time. So I think the meta's going to be just this crazy roller coaster of everybody bitching about whatever just came in. So, and probably rightfully so a little bit, but, every book's going to have a little bit of opiness, and then it's going to probably get a little nerfed, and hopefully everything settles down. But I think by the end of 2022, we're going to have a crazy year. I really think the new missions are doing a lot to balance a lot of things out, though, because you can't just take a powerhouse army and expect to win, because you can just murk your opponent's army off the board. And man, if you didn't score those mission secondaries, those mission and everything else you do, you just lose the game, man. Especially with the end game and stuff like that. You can just have them dance around you the entire game. And I just like that a lot, because you can't just have this big tunnel vision on, I have to kill my opponent. You have to play the game. You have to play the mission, play the game. And I think that's a big deal for all of us before, is that it's list design. I love making lists. That's one of my favorite things about the game, is just designing that list. And I think that designing lists became more difficult. It just did. Especially when you got things like Tau in the meta. You're going to have to design a list that doesn't die and does secondaries and can kill some stuff. So it's it's the same thing you were saying, Lukas. Do I put my kill in here? Yeah, but does that weaken me? Maybe, so you have to find that right balance. And I love that challenge of having to do that.
Yep. For sure.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that feels like a really good look forward on what we've been up to, what's going on next. Is there anything, Lukas, Nick, you guys wanted to ask before we wrap this up?
No, I think that was a great discussion. We pivoted a little bit. We were going to talk a lot about goals, but it seemed like we touched on that briefly, and then we just talked about pivoting that into Army experience.
I'm literally trying to not die. Old man Brad is just, I've set the bar very low. Be alive at the end of 2022. If I do well, I do well. But it did make me think about that a lot. I really enjoy playing the game. And to tell you the truth, if you want to talk about like actual long-term goals on this, if we get a bigger team tournament circuit and more events, I will probably play 90% team tournaments and 10% singles tournaments. Team tournaments are so much more fun. Also, you can lose a game and not feel like the tournament's over. You know what I mean? You're playing a team tournament, you lost a game, your friends slap you in the face and go, hey, quit moping. We have another round in a second here.
Yeah.
And the thing is you can literally lose all of your games and be the MVP in a team tournament because you went out first, you took every match, you played tout every single time because nobody else wanted to, and you got 8 out of 20 points every time. You were literally the linchpin of your guys' winning that team tournament, and you never won a game. You know what I mean? You can't do that in a singles tournament. There's more camaraderie. It's just more fun, and I just enjoy talking crap with my friends anyways, though. You know what I mean? The best part about a 40K tournament is me going, hey, remember when Nick made only 12-inch charges because I hate him, and I only rolled snake eye charges, and I couldn't rank a save? You want to talk about the dumb stuff that happened, He had a psychic phase and he did 40 mortal wounds to me. He's just like, those are just the fun things to talk about. You're sitting at the restaurant complaining over a burger and a couple drinks. You know what I mean? That's the best part about 40K.
Yeah, I don't think any of us have experience at a team tournament, and it is something that we've always been like. Tyler has had one team tournament experience.
Literally go to any of them. It's just so it's so different. You can also make skew lists. Because we're talking about because I knocked the phone over. You can literally make a list that if you're looking at your list now and you're like, I have to put in something for knights, I have to put in something for these hard targets, I don't want to play crusher. In a team tournament, you just make a list that really focuses on 70% of these lists, and you just ignore this and just don't pair into that. You're like, you're bad against knights, cool. You're just not playing knights anymore. You know what I mean? Yep. So and you go smash, and you get these like very hyper focused lists, and I think it's just fun. It's you can do different things, and I just like team. If you haven't been, get on a team. It doesn't even matter how you guys are doing. You get that whole team feel, and it's the better way for me to play 40K. I really like that. I did have I do want to throw a shout out on Colin on this because we had the same thing I talked about. Loving to talk about the games and stuff like that. And I was at the house. This is the last Charity Hammer, and he started laughing. I go, what? He goes, my wife earlier today said you don't like playing 40K. You like winning and talking about it later. If you had 5 people concede to you and talk stories about it later on, you would be as happy as ever playing the game. And I'm like, you're not wrong.
Yeah, that's kind of fair. Yep.
I enjoy that part more. Like, so we're going to eat and talk about the games? Yeah, that's what I want to do.
Very fun part.
No, so if you're not doing that, you are just missing 40K, by the way. I'm just letting anybody know. Find a group, hang out with some people, go with some strangers, man. Have a drink, buy a round, buy something, get involved. It's the community aspect is the thing. That's why I said I can't play a game anymore without somebody talking trash to me. I want you to know, by the way, that everybody that's down, there's 6 people downstairs. Every single one of them came upstairs to give me an obscene gesture and tell me I'm an idiot while we're doing this podcast. Just want you to know what's happening in this area over here for me.
Only the best of friends. That's awesome.
Exactly. And that's my friend group. Everyone telling me I'm a moron. You're like, yeah, that's what we do. If they didn't make fun of me, I would know that they didn't like me. That's what the problem is.
Absolutely.
All right.
Cool.
Well, that's it, lads.
Thanks for having me on, fellas. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
coming,
much.
Brad. We really appreciate your time. That was a good fun.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, signing off, I've been Tyler.
I'm Lucas,
And I'm Nick.
and we're the next generation. And we'll see you guys all next week for another podcast. Bye,
Thanks
y'all.
for listening.